Mm. Mm. If you have a tweet or anything, I'll tweet it. I'll retweet it from mine and the Xbox Era account.
We ended up having last week one of the devs for what's that game that's working on Blade, and as soon as we ended up putting up his that is coming up, Dinka ended up reposting that tweet afterwards. That was pretty silly. Oh man.
Yeah, Dinka lives online a bit.
Yeah, he's pretty like I see constantly tweets from him. I'm like, man, this guy lives on Twitter.
Welcome to the PNX Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Think Del Chapo, and I'm here with my co-host Tarzan. And today we have a special guest. I don't think he needs introductions, but I'll do a quick one for you. This is Jesse Norris of Xbox Era. Welcome, lads. How are we?
I am doing great. How are you?
Yeah. Look, I've been having nothing but technical difficulties this morning, but I'm good. Pumped.
I know that feeling.
Trying to get it right. There's like everything that could go wrong went wrong like 3 times.
Yep.
I know that feeling.
We had a good chat too. It was like, I wish we could have like had that conversation while we were on the podcast. We're talking about all the, little things, the background stuff that happens to make these things possible. Jesse, for those that might be new or they're not within the realm of gaming, who are you? Where are you from? What's your history and stuff?
My name is Jesse Norris. I work for Xbox Era. I am our reviews editor and producer, and I've gotten into doing a lot of news because it turns out the best way you can make money consistently is to get ads on the website. We're at xboxera.com or youtube.com/Xbox Era. We just cracked the 25K subs mark, which has been very hard to do because YouTube has been really weird about any channels growing right now. So that feels good. Outside of that, most people probably know me from just doing a lot of reviews the last 3-ish years or so. I think I've done 260 something around there. I forget.
What?
Wow.
I do video for most of them too, so it would be more. You see, it's always a thing. The longest thing once you get used to doing it with a review is pretty much the playing of the game, depending on how long that takes. So something like Dragon's Dogma 2, even something like Starfield. I played 110 hours of Starfield they gave us about 2 weeks for that one. I played about 110 hours before doing the review, but like writing the review and editing the video was, I don't know, like an hour and a half to 2 hours essentially, because write it, edit it again while narrating it, and then just do the video. And thankfully we have an unbelievably good artist named Predrag who makes everything look so damned professional. So yeah, we really lucked out there with him. Outside of that, it's just grinding to try and build the site.
Wow, like 110 hours just for to play it, right? So you can actually get a good understanding of the game. How many hours a day is that? I like to think of it as...
So we had 2 weeks, but I did that in one because I was having so much fun. I didn't want to stop playing.
Yeah.
But the toughest one for me, so the main thing has been building up relationships with PR companies. And one of the toughest to get in with was Warner Brother Interactive Entertainment. They use 47 PR in the US. Finding who people use alone is one of the hardest things. A little tip. You can it varies for every country, but in America, it's just Google, publisher name, press login, or press portal. A lot of them have a press portal you can apply for. And in that press portal, you can get emails to actually email people. One of the only ways. And almost all of them use a company called 47 PR. So most of my reviews, especially the ones I've really grinded out, have been with 47 because they represent Sega, Capcom, Bethesda, pretty much everyone. Atlas, Bandai Namco, Warner Brothers Interactive, I think PlayStation. Like they rep almost every major publisher.
Wow.
So I wanted to make them happy. They gave me Gotham Knights 3 days before launch, and that game took me 40 hours to beat. So I essentially had 2 days for 40. I had 2.5 days for 40 hours because getting the code late Thursday, then I could play it Friday, Saturday, and I had to be done by Sunday night for a Monday morning embargo. They're normally not that bad, but that was probably the toughest. The second would be Elden Ring because I got it 8 days early for PC, but obviously being an Xbox focused site, once 6 days early, I got Xbox code. I dropped my PC save that had 25 hours in it, but I still had all that footage I could use, and I knew the game start better. But that was 85 hours, I think, that I put into it on Xbox in like 5 days. The one everyone always questions about because they're like, I remember Vinny from Nextlander was like, I hope no one forced him to do that. And it was when Hi-Fi Rush dropped, Shadow dropped, and we were doing a co-stream. The moment the co-stream ended, I started another stream of me just playing it, and I did that for a few hours, but I never stopped. I just played it for, I think, 12 hours straight, and then I wrote the review, narrated it, and edited the video, and posted it 5 a.m. the next morning. So that was one of the biggest ones we ever did because I was first by like 3 days. So
I remember
sometimes
that.
it's worth it.
I remember the Hi-Fi Rush thing go up first, and I was like, I haven't even done the first level. But we're the target audience, right? Because we want to know, like, is it good?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty much the when we're in our position, if we're not first, there's almost no point early on. We had to grow where we can put something out a little later and people will still look at it because half the time, like when you're small, if you're not there with everyone else or if you're not before everyone else, then you just get, like, our biggest review ever was when I got NBA 2K22 5 hours before launch, I think, and I just played the shit out of it, and it's an NBA, it's a sports game.
Yeah.
So if you've played them recently, you just know what has changed. That's the main thing. You don't need to play 300 hours. You need to just see what is different.
Yeah.
Does it control differently? How are these modes? And I got that one up, and when I got that one up first, like 2 days before anyone else, it's our top. It's like near 30,000 views on YouTube, and it was like 60,000 or something on the website. But then the next year, we didn't get it that fast. Somebody else was doing it. Took like a week, and it's got like 600. So it's like,
wow.
We're still in a position where being either with everyone else at embargo time, or if it's a situation where there is no real embargo, they just gave it to everyone right around launch, being first is key. So I still have that mindset.
So yeah, it's
grind
almost, it's like a
real.
race.
Yeah,
Like a
that's
race.
I didn't know how tough like the whole review stuff is, and like now that you mentioned it, the grind is absolute real.
I'm lucky that I like playing lots of genres. I know with John joining me full time now, thanks to our thankfully very generous patrons and mixture of YouTube revenue and ad revenue on the site, we're able to do that. But he's like he just has a hard time playing every genre. He did step out of that a bit and has been playing more stuff and realizing, oh yeah, there are things I like, but it was like take Crusader Kings 3. It's a text-based medieval dynasty overtime simulator that I had zero interest in, but it was coming to Game Pass. So I was like, I'll take a look, and then I ended up really enjoying it, giving it a really high score. It's nothing I've ever touched again, but just playing it enough to know what something is, let somebody know what it is, and then add my, subjective take alongside the facts. It's I've done it enough now where it just feels second nature. So people are always like, how do you do so many? And it's like, I play way too many video games. That's about it.
No, it has to be done. It's definitely, obviously, in today's market, there's a way more people reviewing games than there was like even 10 years ago. It was like the IGNs, the Game Informers, the big, media conglomerate businesses, and they have teams and teams of people and numbers behind them to actually just dedicate one person to that game while another person does another game, and because you've got multiple games releasing at the same time, so I can only imagine, like the work that has to go in. Man, it's super.
Yeah, we've
impressive.
done over. I think we're at 608 now as a website. Most have, I'd say, like over 400. I think review videos. So we try to do videos for most things, and it just always ends up coming down to caring and wanting to put in the work. I think you can tell when it's just for a paycheck compared to something somebody really enjoys doing.
Yeah.
Like if you watch some of the bigger independent guys like an ACG or a lot of them, they might have a formula to how they do them, but you always feel like they're into what they're doing. And I think we struck a good balance with trying to cover everything that we can, but never making it feel like you can tell when someone's not into it.
Yeah. And you've got the extension now of, like, I've noticed, with the like some news articles coming up now, like the short form ones where some news drops and then you guys are covering it. Is that your department? Is that what you're doing yourself, or is it?
I pretty much end up doing everything. A lot of it's been me lately. It's me, John, and then a volunteer friend we have named Chengiz. I would say we're like the main three news coverers. It is a newer thing, as we've learned, the dreaded SEO, search engine optimization. If you see, everything has to be around 300 words. Everything has to have, you set a keyword that's in your title, that shows up in your first paragraph, that gets sprinkled throughout, because it is essentially, how will Google serve this to people? And you have to do it exactly the way they want. So it's trying to really avoid clickbait whenever you can. But you still need to serve it in the same way everyone else does, because they're doing it for that Google controls the internet reason. We got big enough, thankfully, we were able to get into Microsoft Start, which if you use the Edge browser, it's those little square articles that show up beneath there. So we'll start being in there now, which is its own thing. It's not tied to anything else. It's its own version of each article, and it's its own ad revenue for each thing. So much of doing this and us coming at it from the press angle and not the content creator only angle or streamer angle is making enough money in enough little ways to pay people finally.
Well, yeah, and it's a transition, isn't it? Like, you guys obviously started as a smaller just podcasting, and then now that you're
just a podcast on YouTube.
Yeah, and now I can kind of see where it's grown, because it's a learning curve, isn't it? It's constantly learning new things and being prepared to learn and not be the expert, but someone at the bottom, I suppose.
Yeah, had a lot of friends, people like Jeff Grubb and Jez Corden and Randall Thor and other people that have, also had similar bust their butts for a long time. And then you find newer people and you try and help them. It's so much of it, like always, is just networking and how do you interact with people, be professional. If you don't know, be willing to learn and adjust to how things do work. It's constant, and there's definitely people that are out there that just want to drag you down into drama, and being able to avoid that as much as you can, especially because we have a public Discord and a forum, and we've got a moderation team that's essentially myself and one volunteer. So it's a lot, but it's also fun.
Yeah.
Like we would like to make a living doing it. We'd like to have everyone that volunteers on the team at least get like commission for, hey, you helped out a bunch this month, here's a couple $100 type of scenario in the future. But it didn't start like, let's just make a company and sell it. We want to be able to do this forever. We don't want to ever stop. Yeah. And I do think that's one difference when you see a lot of the other ones where they're immediately looking to become part of like a big network, and then you immediately have to go into your website's going to be mostly focused on guides, because that is the easiest way to make ad revenue on the internet, because everyone will type in, how do I do this specific thing in this big game? And you have to have 700 of those things out there, because the corporations want to have big teams that have like 10 or 20 or 30 people, and you're like, no, we put out more content for the things we like, reviews and podcasts and news shows and all that stuff, with 2 full-timers and like 4 volunteers, and we want to keep doing that, have maybe another couple full-timers, and actually be able to pay people so they're not just volunteers. And we can do that with our team because we really enjoy what we're doing, and I don't think anybody enjoys doing guide work or clickbait. It is soul-crushing.
And initially, like, because you guys like when you guys started off till now, because you guys enjoy what you do, you guys have become like the voice. Like people rely on the stuff that you guys say, because you guys enjoy what you guys do, what you guys put out, the reviews that you do, and that's why I look forward for a lot of stuff that you guys put up. Actually, gaming reviews, whether it's tech and stuff. I always look forward to when you guys put something up before I end up buying it. Because I'm not gonna mention it, but I trust you guys a lot when it comes to stuff. So and a lot of that taste is actually almost very similar. So
yeah,
that ends up being one of the main things for reviewing. Is you don't have to find someone that just says what you want to hear, but if you find someone that has a similar taste to what you like, it can help a lot, because most people will just look at scores and think that's it. But if you actually want to know about the product, like, people still go at me for really enjoying Redfall, and that hasn't changed for me. I enjoyed Redfall. I mostly played it co-op. I enjoyed it a lot. I gave it a good score. We've been playing it we started playing it again last week on stream. Still loving it. But I wrote like 3,300 words about why I enjoyed it, and I can guarantee you like 99% of the people who shit on me for liking it didn't read a single word. Look at the score. Yeah. So if you find someone you don't necessarily want an echo chamber from, you share similar tastes, and that ends up being the few ones that you will go in and you will actually read or listen to what they say about stuff. And that's what I like. I like finding a few voices that have similar tastes, or that I know what they like, so when they talk about something, I get an idea of what it is along with how it made them feel. And that's the main thing for me. It can't just, people say this review isn't objective, and it's like, no review would ever be objective, otherwise it would just be a spec sheet. It would be really boring. It would just be a list of facts and nothing else. It should have every fact you think is salient to the discussion, but then how did you feel playing it? Like, that is a huge part. That's the one thing you can let people know. This is what the game is. This is how I felt. And finding how you interweave those two things together to give an honest opinion. And a lot of times people will say, oh, you were honest about this. Or when I didn't like Armored Core 6, you're not honest about that. It's like, well, no, if you don't agree with me, that's A-okay. It has nothing to do with dishonesty. And I guarantee you, reviews don't like make a bunch of money, so no one's getting paid for them, and that's one of the main thing people always think is, oh, the check didn't clear, and it's like, what? No, I get sent these headphones. They're really nice. It's not going to change my opinion on them. I get sent some controllers from Power A, and I was like, these are kind of shit. And they make some really nice stuff otherwise, but these ones in particular are not worth the money. And then they actually sliced the friggin' price in half before I could even get the review live, so they knew too. It's just people... Everyone wants A versus B, sometimes A versus B versus C, and everybody wants a gotcha, and it's the easiest form of engagement, which is that list warring of pretty much anything: sports, religion, politics, video games, any entertainment. And that's what we try to avoid. It's very hard, but we try.
Initially, that was me in the very beginning when I did get the Xbox Series X. I was always looking at the Metacritic score before I ended up buying it, and then one day I ended up testing out or playing Plague Tale Requiem, and I think that had like a 79 or 80 or something like that. I can't remember. And that game completely flipped the switch, and ever since then I've been like, yeah, no, I'm going to. That game is the reason why I got into the whole story stuff. But then from there onward, I was like, I'm going to listen to people that actually have the same, like how I feel about games and what games I play. I want to listen to people like that. So ever since then, I got introduced to you guys by Ink, actually. And I've been like solid on you guys.
Yeah.
So
Just the quality of their podcast, like, because obviously 5-6 years ago, I was probably consuming like 100 hours of podcasts a week, like ridiculous, like just constantly listening to it while I work. You guys are the one that stood out. It was like the most interesting one, week in, week out, comparing it to other people's exact same news cycle. So you got like, whatever's happening that particular week, one particular podcast, I'd listen to it, then the next one, and I'd be getting the same news over and over again. But then I'd get to the Xbox Hero one and glued to it, like basically wanted to listen to it from start to finish, week in, week out, without a doubt, couldn't miss an episode. So it shows, it speaks to the quality of it, obviously, because if I'm consuming all of them and the one I'm glued to, obviously it's preference as well, but I'm comparing you guys to like big companies, and I was like, no, these guys are probably one of the most interesting ones, and that's saying a lot, in this day and age to stand out amongst other people. It's the thing of that you guys didn't lack the nuance, right? You would talk about a subject, it wasn't black or white, and it wasn't catering to the the Twitter mob. Oh, let's just pick a side and then kind of allow it to catch on fire.
We try real hard to not... It's a thing you hear, especially in like sports radio in America, is it's very obvious when I'm going to take this side to piss people off, and I'm going to take this side to piss the other side off, and they pretend fight. And the one thing with John, myself, and Nick is we all know in general how each other are going to feel about a topic, and we might rib each other occasionally about stuff, but it always comes from like we know each other, the audience knows us now at this point. We're really used to talking to each other and just it's shooting the shit with three friends who do our best to keep up with an industry that none of us have ever worked in, so we don't really know that much. But from the fan user perspective, I think we're all pretty darn good with a long history of playing things.
But that's why that's why people like us are, because we're the users as well. So like you're talking from that perspective, that's the most important perspective, especially when it comes to buying games or just hearing the news cycle of that week, which like kind of I'd love this conversation to continue for another 6 hours, but I'm going to bring up the first point that we were going to talk about in the news cycle. Like obviously you've done the review for Dragon's Dogma. I've got like about 20 hours of gameplay. How long is the game anyway?
Yeah, it can be anywhere from, if you want to just kind of mainline it, like 30 hours to 100 if you want to find everything that's on the map, because there's a lot. It does not tell you most of its mechanics and side quests and stuff. It wants you to find them. It wants you to have a reason to go. If you hear a guy say, hey, we're arresting him, we're sending him to this jail, you can go find that guy later in that jail, and it can lead to a whole nother quest line, or you don't realize you can do that and you have no idea. It's that type of game. If you have people die and you don't have a wake stone to bring them back within a couple days, then entire quest chains are just gone. Like, they want the choices to really matter, while being a light RPG that plays like an easier Monster Hunter, and it is a lot of fun. I love that game.
Oh, I had one last night. I had to follow a guy around, what I thought was follow the guy around, and the quest would somehow update like a normal game does. But it's the beggar quest. You know the beggar quest early on? So it's not really spoilery, but you got to follow the beggar around. But it doesn't explain to you what you got to do. So I spent the day just following the guy around and I'm like, what's going on? Is this mission going to update or what? And I had to look up a guide. And when I looked up the guide, I said, there's 3 ways you can do it. I would have never thought. So
that one was hard to review because you have no idea, and their review guide is very basic. They weren't giving a bunch out. The only thing they gave out, because they knew a lot of people could miss it, was how to actually... The first game had a true ending. I don't think it's a huge spoiler to guess that the second game has a true ending, and you need to see it, and I've definitely seen reviews that didn't want to be spoiled, didn't read that guide, and you can very clearly tell they missed the true ending. Which is why, like, I get the idea. Like, I know Jez is a friend. He's like, he didn't read anything because he didn't want to be spoiled. And then he played like 100 hours, so he saw everything on his own. But sometimes, depending on if it is just a 9 to 5 and you need to get paid for every hour, or else they tell you not to work on it because it's a big corporation and you only have 40 hours to do everything, play the game, write the review, make sure the video gets done, all that, even if you're only writing. It's tough. In a game like that, because you can miss like half of it very easily, and it's just one of those things where it's different to play something for review versus play it for fun. Because when I played Balatro early for review, and I just tried to grind how to unlock everything to see as much as I can, but now I play Balatro for fun, and it's incredibly relaxing, and I knew it could be that if I wasn't doing a review and I only had like 5 days, and not like Balatro, it takes forever, but I was doing like 6 other things. Like the Halo TV show, I think I'm going to be getting Fallout TV show to review. I forget. They said they'd get back to us, but it's another thing where I found their press site, applied to it, and they said yes. But yeah, it's hard to go from game to game, because especially going on and talking about them again, like outside of a couple of podcasts, I haven't thought of Dragon's Dogma since I played it, but then I start talking and everything starts flying back, and it's like my brain hides most of it, then we start talking, it all comes back, and I just start rambling.
I'm just thinking of the Jez Corden article about Dragon's Plague. I'm like, I wonder if he came across that by it ruining his save.
First time upon gets it, it gives you a tutorial about it.
Oh, okay.
So, but I do think some people skip them. But yeah, pretty much, if you ever get Dragon's Plague, if their eyes start glowing, if they're being a dick to you and not doing what you ask them, kill them. Just kill that pawn. Find a cliff, toss them off it, or find water and toss them in it. You're good to go.
Yeah, the water's where they didn't want to put a swimming mechanic in. That's what I felt.
So it's like the first game. Yeah, there's a reason you can't go in the water.
Yeah.
I don't think you found it out in the first game, but you can find it out in the second game. What's going on in the water?
I fell in the water straight away. I'm like, what's going on? This game's killing me.
Yeah, brine, I think they call it. Like there's a creature or something in there that just immediately tendrils anything that goes near it.
It's funny.
I saw a post about the Dragon's Plague. How I'm not too sure how accurate this is, but the guy says that if you leave it like leave it until it's completely taken over, the character or the pawn turns into a dragon.
Oh,
Is
Yeah,
that
so
whoa.
yeah, they turn into this weird shadow creature. Yeah.
Oh my God.
wow? The extent in this game is crazy, man.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I was trying to explain to Tarzan myself, because I was streaming it to him on Discord, telling him how much I hate it at the start. Like, it's not AAA, Starfield's better. I just like comparing it to things and getting frustrated. And then I was messaging him the 24 hours later, like, oh, this might actually be Game of the Year material.
Yeah,
I can't stop
it is
playing.
it's its own language. It's its own everything you have to learn. There's not really much like it. So it feels very different at first, and you're like, I don't know how to do any of this. But as you learn its mechanics and its systems, it grows quite a bit.
Yeah. Well, I just had one question with the open world. I noticed I was like running down paths early on, and kind of the map is designed where there's like a lake in the middle. Does that open up anymore, or how is it? Like, I'm sure it's not spoilery to talk about it, but
It's not a huge open thing. It is, you're normally going on paths and going a little off of them, and then there's a second area you'll get to eventually. That is more open, less water in it. So
yeah, okay, that's what I was thinking. Because look, not that I have an issue with it, because it's obviously a great game to play. And the combat is phenomenal, and I'm only just doing the thief vocation, so I'm nowhere near like getting into it. I was just trying to build that one up, and I'm not even that far in. So I'll be changing vocations like I change my underwear pretty much. It's once a day, maybe twice a day if accidents happen.
That's even better. Thanks, bro.
Yeah. No, yeah. Oh, well, that's all right. Well, we can probably just continue on with what we're going to talk about today. The Xbox handheld. Me and Tarzan have been talking about it back and forth in messages, and I own the ROG Ally, and I'm like I just can't kind of wrap my head around what type of power this little handheld console is going to have, and the price point. Like, and I know a lot of people are talking about it, but my head can't get past that, because I own the ROG Ally, and all these handheld PCs in the Australian market cost anywhere from 1,200 to 1,500 Australian dollars. Like, what are we? What's your take on it, Jesse? What's your take on it?
they have been conservative with the power profiles on the Series S and the Series X, I think for that reason, where as they can get their process for making the system on a chip smaller and smaller so it's more efficient and uses less power, they can target what a Series S does with a much smaller wattage needed, because right now it has to be plugged into a wall. It's super hot. Like, that's always one thing people forget. The Series S gets very hot, and while these do get hot as well, they've got to figure out a way get it down to probably like the 6 nanometer or lower process where it's using less energy, it's more efficient, and it is just a Series S in your hands. It just works exactly like that. It is literally like if they chopped out the motherboard from a Series S, made it super small, and got it into a really nice piece of hardware that's probably the price of what a Series X is now. So it's probably like $500 US, because obviously you need a screen, controller, the heat sinks, like you need every single part of it. To do that, you can subsidize it. So instead of it being the $700 US like the Legion Go I have is, it can be closer to what we're used to. But then maybe you have the higher tier new Series X that's like $700, and that's the differentiator now, because they're just not going to be able to make a handheld that runs like a Series S does for cheap. So you might as well try and lean more into that power crown for your main console, and then you've got the Series S, and with the way they do their UI, that hypervisor layer that can translate everything, it gives them way more options than what Sony would have. For Sony to try and make a PlayStation 5 handheld would be pretty much impossible, just because of the way their API is to the metal as it is. And I'm sure AMD is very smart. They could probably figure something out, but it's just not going to be as easy as the setup Xbox has. So my guess, because unlike Nick or even John, I have no interest in the Insider game. I would guess like a $500 handheld if they were able to pull it off to figure out how to make the power work and just be a Series S.
Wow.
And my only thought is because I spoke to Inked about it a couple of days ago about it as well. Because in the interview a couple of months ago with Sarah Bond and Phil Spencer and how they had to try and clear out the whole 4 games thing going to different consoles. Sarah Bond did mention like the greatest technical leap for a hardware. So if that would be the handheld, or I would assume if it's the handheld, because we've seen it a lot. We've seen it like the handhelds from different companies. You got the Legion, you got the ROG. I wonder what the power would be like, because you did mention it could be almost similar to a Series S.
I think it would have to be. That would be the only way it would really work for them, because if they're going to have multiple power profiles, essentially, where they've got the Series S, it's conservative. They could push the Series S and the Series X higher, but I think they just don't, because they wanted this. Essentially, they wanted this option in the future where if they could get the power, the TDP to work in a handheld, then it's much easier if you're not pushing everything as hard as you can, which is what PlayStation did to up the clocks on the PS5 to try and make sure it could keep as close to parity with the Series X as it could. Like the variable clocks and the liquid metal cooling and all that type of stuff really limits them being able to do a handheld. That's why you end up seeing something like the Portal, where it's just a cloud device to work with the console you've already bought. But Xbox is in a position where they can make a handheld Series S. I don't think there's any real question about it now. It's just when would it come? And it would probably have to wait on getting the right process with TSMC for something power efficient enough to actually work. It's not going to be cheap.
Yeah.
But when do you reckon, like in your thing, not a complete, because I know you're not in the whole inside again, like you mentioned. When do you reckon we will get info about it? Like anytime soon, or the Xbox showcase, or?
It's one of the hardest things, because we've gotten so much from leaks, which have people say they have bad messaging, and it's more like they just have had one person messed up real bad during the FTC trial and screwed them over with letting out a bunch of stuff like that adorably all digital Series X slide that we saw that isn't seemingly happening now. Because it's just a thing. They look into it and they figure it out. Is it going to be worth the R&D and the costs and all that? And it definitely seems like they have swapped, where if we get a digital Series X this year, that is just cheaper. That's the main difference. It looks a little different. It's cheaper. It still works with all your covers or stickers or anything you've gotten for your current Series X, but 2026 is the constant rumor you hear. So hearing about that, maybe a year ahead of time on that, it could be earlier, because they went pretty damn early when they talked about the Series X, and they talked really early about the One X. I don't know. They have so many games coming, and they've been putting so many out. They already have so much stuff. There's a lot already with dates for the next few months, but then there's 29 more Game Pass Day 1 releases this year that don't have dates yet for 2024, with a mix of third party, first party. So they're at every show. If there's Summer Game Fest, they'll probably have stuff there. If they're doing the summer the play days afterwards, which I got invited to and I might actually get to go to, that he does as part of Summer Game Fest, I bet you they're there with more stuff. They've got their June showcase. If they ever bring back XO in the fall, I would say sooner than later would be my guess, but it's so hard to know that I give up. I give up on trying to guess anymore. It's tough.
Yeah, it is tough. It's tough. It's a fun thing to even just talk about, and the potential of it. I was confused, because I was I saw the Steam Deck struggling to run Dragon's Dogma, and then I was just I don't know how they're going to pull this off. But let's talk about more games than hardware for now, because there's so many games to bloody talk about. You just said, was it 21 coming this year?
29.
Early or
Yeah, 20.
29?
Yeah, so there's
wasn't it?
more. Yeah, so there's I'll put it in chat. There's a I've got an article I keep up to date as much as I can.
Yeah.
It's every Xbox Game Pass game 2024. So there's already stuff listed for April, but then outside of April, there is I think it's 29 things that are set for this year but don't have a date. But like even in April, you've got Harold Halibut, Ayuden Chronicle 100 Heroes, Another Crab's Treasure, Manor Lords. You've got Senua Saga 2 or Senua Saga Hellblade 2 and Haunty in May. Still Wakes the Deep in July. Stalker 2 in September.
Yeah.
But then there's there's 28 games, and then I put Activision Blizzard titles as well because I imagine we're going to get some back compat stuff. But there's at least 28 things that are all coming, and it's crazy when you think about it because they're also going to be constantly adding Activision games. Like they just added Diablo 4 today.
Yeah.
So I think they're going to be heavy on the software side for a while because people have gone at them a lot about a lack of games, even though that's never actually been a thing for the platform. There's a constant focus of who publishes something instead of a focus of just what is available on the platform. Because there's never been a lack of games on Switch. There's never been a lack of games on PlayStation 5. There's never been a lack of games on the series consoles, no matter who's... because they just have so many publishers on them. Like PlayStation has had very long gaps of having little to nothing first party, but they've just got a shit ton of games on the system all the time.
Yeah.
And people just go like, oh, it's fine. They've got a ton of stuff. It's like, yeah, everyone's always got a ton of stuff. There's more games than anyone can play.
I was gonna say, we're drowning in them at the moment. Like I cannot keep up. And then bring me on to the next point. But they're talking about the 2025 games now. Like one of them, well, you've got Death Stranding 2, you've got GTA 6 possibly in 2025, and then the one that I want to talk about was Judas. There was early preview discussions and a couple. So I think IGN did a preview, with Jeff Keighley, and they had an interview with Ken Levine, and we had the Friends Per Second podcast.
Yeah, I think there was like 3 or 4 different people who got invited to their studio in Boston to check it out.
Yeah, in
It was
Boston.
like Ryan
that's
McCaffrey
right.
at IGN,
Yeah.
Ryan McCaffrey, Jeff Keighley, Lucy James from Friends Per Second, and I forget if there was anyone else.
Yeah, I think that's the ones that I watched, and I wasn't like superly, interested in the game just from the trailers. That happens a lot with me. I don't normally get like I've got to see gameplay and have a bit of an understanding of what the game is going to offer before I get excited. And just off the previews, I was like, oh my god, like non-linear story structure. Your character has memory loss. There's the side characters, like one was Troy Baker, voiced by Troy Baker. They're like AI kind of companions that I would compare them to in Cyberpunk with what's his name?
Johnny Silverhand.
Yeah, Johnny Silverhand.
Keanu Reeves.
Yeah. Their narratives are occurring, so it's like that Lego narrative happening all at once. And you can obviously the game has replayability and it's got roguelike elements or something. I was like, what?
Yeah, they said there was a mode or a part of it that has like roguelike type runs.
Yeah, where you die and you lose your stuff, but you get obviously you're making progress or something. I thought
There's a like meta leveling around it, which is always the best roguelite.
Yeah.
You got good meta.
Hades was, I think, one of the guys on the Friends Per Second podcast, when they were talking about it, he was comparing it to Hades, and I go, oh, okay, I can wrap my head around that.
Yeah, Hades was a good introduction for people into the roguelite/roguelite genre, essentially, where I think a lot of people have realized, if I'm doing runs and I don't have to commit a ton of time and remember everything all the time, but I still feel this sense of progression, it's a really nice setup for a lot of games. And some people will go, "Oh, I don't like roguelike, I don't like runs or card-based things." And it's like, I promise you, in the right context, it really helps a lot of games.
Yeah, isn't Hades 2 coming out in the next year or two?
It's so Hades 2 is supposed to come into early access on PC this year.
Yeah, I'm loving that. I've only just got I've had the ROG Ally, but like the actual proper PC there, and I'm trying to jump into betas and early access things as much as I can.
Mm-hmm. It's fun. I'm not huge on early access because I end up, there's only a few where I'll check in on them every once in a while, but I end up just finding myself always having to go back to review work or preview work. So like I started getting into Destiny 2 again for a little bit, and I was like, oh, nah. Because I got 3 reviews show up, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I can't really. So that's why something like Balatro is so nice, because I can jump in there for 20 minutes or 2 hours, depending on what type of time I have, and turn on a podcast, just killing time playing that. I am a huge roguelike fan.
Is Balatro roguelike?
Balatro is a deck-building roguelike. It is a run-based game. Yeah, it is. It's essentially playing poker without having to know anything about poker, and there's no gambling or anything. There's no microtransactions. It's just trying to build up incredibly strong poker hands that just break the game. It's I gave it a 10, and I have not had a single person who has played it disagree with me. Not even Nick, who disagrees with every 10.
Yeah, I was about to say Nick would have been. I think he thinks it's a 10 too because he went and he's been playing it himself. That's funny.
Yeah. He renamed his Twitter thing to
Balatro.
Yeah.
You know he likes the game.
Balatro Nick.
That's
Gotta
funny.
love that. That's awesome. Like going with Judah, when you mentioned when the previewer mentioned about how the NPCs start to turn on you if you don't go alongside with their quests, and they start to act a bit different. That is what caught my eye. Like the trailer was like, I really liked it. It felt like what BioShock is. And then when they mentioned that the NPCs will start to turn on you, oh man, I was hooked. I can't wait till this comes out.
Yeah.
It's
Mm-hmm.
I like when games start innovating stuff like that and adding little tweaks in it to make sure that you're on the right path or you're not diverted somewhere else. That's amazing.
Yeah,
It feels a lot like what they were hoping to go for, but never really got to with BioShock Infinite. Because when you go back to the initial showings of what BioShock Infinite looked like and how reactive it was, but the tech and everything just wasn't really there, especially how CPU limited that generation was. It's very interesting to see after a fair amount of time. It hasn't been 10 years working on this, but it's been a while that they've been able to figure out not just now we can do more, but how are we going to make that fun? I'm very interested in it.
Oh yeah. He was mentioning in the interview one of his inspirations or one of the gameplay things he liked was in Shadow of Mordor with the
NPC production or the production.
They had the system in Shadow of Mordor with the NPCs,
Nemesis.
the Nemesis system. They had like he was inspired by that the procedural nature of that and how they can integrate it into their game. And I'm thinking, that's what as gamers, that's what we want. We want to see. We don't just want to see the next game that's pretty and it's it feels good to play. Obviously, they're important things, but what are you doing to push the genre or any kind of the gaming industry forward? Because I heard another dev, actually it was a dev for No Rest for the Wicked, talking about controllers, right, and saying how controllers is one thing he wants to see move forward, and I think that's very true. How we interact with games, so we're not limited to these things anymore.
So that's the biggest thing, because like I've got a MetaQuest 3 that they sent for review, for reviewing games on, and the opportunities that having even just hand tracking, like they've got a demo where you can just pick objects up and do all these things with the hand tracking, and the more things you can do like that, the amount of different gameplay systems we never had. Just the futzing around in something like Half-Life Alyx, that game will probably never be matched outside of VR for me in just the immersive nature of being able to, I'm actually in this world and living, and I can do almost anything I want for the most part. I can pick up a can and I can just crush it in my hands and then toss it 30 feet. Like, if there were, I wish VR wasn't so restrictive and singular when it's being used. If there was some way, and boy, would it be expensive to have friggin' holo projectors and all that type of laser light shit and have it so everyone could see what you're doing in VR, and then you'd look really dumb for waving your hands around anyways. But if there was some way to open up the gameplay of VR to more people and at a better cost, because it is, even with the Quest 3, it's like $500 to get into it, and then you can buy every game, and then if you want to have a couple of your bowl, you get to share a freaking headset, and that's gross because of head sweat. Yeah, the controller issue, it has to be agreed upon by everyone because it has to be widely adopted. You can even see it in things like the adaptive triggers or the haptic feedback on DualSense. They only really go into something if that game is going to be on PlayStation as well. Like, you could use controllers that have that stuff on PC, but it wasn't in Hi-Fi Rush until Hi-Fi Rush came to PlayStation. Yeah. That's one of the main things I do hope Xbox takes. I don't give a shit about the adaptive triggers because those just break all the time.
Yeah.
And they're kind of annoying. But the rumbles, the nice haptic feedback is cool. It adds a little bit to it, and as long as I can have actual good battery life, because my son now has 2 DualSense controllers and the charging station because he gets 4 hours or so out of it every time. Yeah, if that's the type of stuff, we're hitting budgetary and time constraints on just what games can do, because people say, how come nothing matches Red Dead Redemption 2's interactivity in world and all that stuff? It's because they had 8 years and a massive human cost and budget to be able to pull that off. It was insanely hard. It destroyed a studio where multiple founding members left, and they had to change the entire setup to try and be anti-crunch for once because they were going to lose all their workers otherwise. Like, the human cost of bigger and better software is so much more than what we could do if we innovate on just how you interact with games. So I agree. I think it was Thomas Mahler who might have said that, because I know he had talked about that before on our podcast, where it's like, yeah, controllers just really limit what you can do.
Oh yeah, and the way, like, it's just it's fascinating. I mean, it's kind of like I was having a conversation with some of my family members over Christmas, and it was around the Apple, the Apple headset. And we were just saying how long are we going to be interacting with mobile phones before something else comes out to replace it? We live with these things, and this is the way we interact with most of our social, interactions online is via phones. So what's coming to replace that? And it's the same in the gaming industry. There is only going to be a point where we interact one way and it changes.
I concur.
Because you mentioned about the MetaQuest 3, how you guys had that for review. I'm actually thinking of buying something in the same range, either the MetaQuest. Have you got the chance to review the Vivo Cosmo?
I'm not. VR hasn't done gangbusters for us. Some of them did okay, some didn't. And since I can do pretty much anything that's VR on that, I haven't felt the need to look for more, especially because most people are just buying that nowadays. It seems to be the only one that's doing well outside of the Index, which is also twice the cost and a lot worse now as far as the screen and everything goes. But yeah, it's tough to keep up on the VR side now because there's just so little outside of the Quest. There's just so little actually being done with it. So I didn't even know there was a new HTC One.
Yeah, it's news to me as well. That's interesting. Well, we'll just roll on to the next thing because VR. I think it's going to become a little bit more mainstream now thanks to Apple and their AR headset anyway. So, like, people putting things on their head might become more of a norm. But I wonder if we're going to be playing Elder Scrolls 6 on it.
Oh, bro.
That's in VR.
With their once the creation kit's out, we'll have Starfield, and I will definitely be playing Starfield in VR once the full things and the creation kit's out there. Yeah, no, that would be great, especially with that one being a shooter. Because Skyrim VR, solid, not great, but Fallout 4 VR is actually very good, especially if you mod it up nicely for like more natural reloading and combat and spruce up the graphics and everything. Yeah, that'll be. And Starfield already looks so ridiculously good that I am very excited about the possibility of that. And Bethesda is one of the best about that type of support. So I do think those are the things that will really continue to carry it while we wait to see if Valve's ever going to do anything again.
Yeah, I can imagine how Starfield would look on a VR headset in first person. Beautiful.
Yeah.
I played.
Funnily enough, it would probably look the best on a PSVR 2 with their OLED screen for the price. There are other ones like Big Screen Beyond that I think does OLED as well. But the OLED with those inky blacks and everything, you do get some ghosting and smearing. But like even the Apple Vision Pro, if you could ever get that thing to work with like xCloud and get it in there, that'd be nice.
Oh yeah.
Imagine
they restrict everything though.
Imagine if Xbox turns around saying that, no, it's not a handheld, but it's actually a VR headset. Oh my god.
People, they would lose a lot of money because VR is pretty dead.
Yeah. And, but yeah, Starfield on a VR headset, if it does, like, I know, if it does have the potential, but that would be amazing. That would be definitely amazing to see.
I think the moment the creation kit's ready, and it should be sooner than later. They did say early this year was their goal for it. But you know how things always change. Because coding is very hard.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I definitely, the moment the creation kit's up there and people have more access to, because there's already like 7,000 mods for Starfield, just because the game's open as is, so you can already do quite a bit. But yeah, I definitely think it'll be the typical Bethesda, huge at launch. People say they hate it 2 to 6 months after. Creation kit hits, and from there it just gets bigger and bigger, and everyone forgets when they hated it. Yeah.
Well, you and I had that interaction. I think we spoke. I was like, the next big update could possibly be the DLC. But I think you're right. And you said, it's more than likely they'll start to prep for the creation kit, which is huge for the game anyway. Like, I can't imagine what kind of mods we'll be looking at once that gets dropped.
Yeah, no, it'll be the thing. Oh, they're saving the game. It's like, no, Starfield's actually really fun. If you don't like their game design, fine. But the actual tech behind Starfield, like the cloth, the materials and the lighting, and so much of it is like top tier, phenomenal. But you might not like their game design and how it works. And then the mods come along and they fix a lot of that.
Yeah.
So you can customize it to your liking, and they understand that's how people think, and they leave it open for that. And but I am very curious. We know the creation kit is supposed to be soon, and that I would imagine the expansion is probably like a year or so out from launch, so September on. But they've got so much shit coming out that I wonder when they do it. Because, I mean, we've got Hellblade in May. We don't know anything after Hellblade. So there's Towerborn, Flight Sim 2024, Indiana Jones, Avowed, Call of Duty. That's theirs. Like, there's a lot of shit coming. I mean, they probably just had their biggest launch of the year last week with Call of Duty Warzone Mobile, but they still have a lot more coming. So I am very curious on timing.
Oh yeah, how do you even come up with a pipeline for that? And then, well, the news this week was that the devs were actually playing early builds of Elder Scrolls 6. So there's a playable build of the game. We're already thinking about the next one.
Yeah, because so much of Starfield was getting the tech right. Like they always said it wasn't going to take nearly as long to do Elder Scrolls 6. So I don't know why people do seem surprised. It was like, the big thing was building this new engine, and now the engine's built, so you can keep tweaking it, but the engine's there, and you can just work with it and mold it more now.
Yeah, and it's going to be a more focused experience, more akin to their old style of making games. It's just one singular open world, but probably a very large one. You know, I'm sure they're going to push
Hmm.
that as
Yeah.
far as they can go.
Well, because a single cell, like when you land in Starfield, one of those cells is like 13 Skyrim maps big. They're really huge. So they can just take one of those cells, but then fill it up
Yeah,
with a shit ton of stuff, including dotting little cells for like caves and all that and whatnot. It's a very different thing. And I know people look at it and like, oh, I miss the exploration that Skyrim had. And it was a very different exploration because the world map was the star map, and then the galaxy, and then you had your points of interest to go to that were infinitely larger than anything any of their games had before, except for like Daggerfall, which was literally I think infinite almost. But
yeah,
yeah, no, it was just a different style.
yeah,
I don't think I know some people like I love Mike Minotti. He's an awesome guy, but I remember him saying, "I'm worried about Elder Scrolls after how things worked in Starfield." I'm like, well, it was a very different approach. I guarantee you, you're not going to have space travel and loading screens nonstop in Elder Scrolls, even though there is some lore in Elder Scrolls with spaceships in it. If you look it up.
Oh yeah, there's definitely law. I would laugh if you know how everyone was joking about the cart, the start of Skyrim. They do an Uno reverse card, and you start in Elder Scrolls 6, and then you're walking, and then all of a sudden you're in a spaceship and you fly to different planets. Everyone will lose their minds. Oh, that'll be the failure there. That game will fail on day one.
And like I saw, well, with Starfield, they might because Bethesda they really keened on like somehow adding Easter eggs for their previous games and other games. Like with Starfield, they did the same thing. I think with the Elder Scroll, where I can't remember. I think it was a book. You pick up a book, I think in Starfield, and it mentions a story um about one of the dialogues one of the characters says in Elder Scroll. I can't remember what the story
Yeah,
was,
yeah,
but
yeah.
the precision, like, and like you mentioned about the scale, um, I actually fell into my first boundary the other about a week ago.
Really?
You know
Yeah,
how, yeah, you know how people get through the boundary wars, and it
yeah.
wasn't actually. Some people were saying 10 minutes, 15 minutes. It was actually an hour. With me going forward,
Mm,
an hour.
mm.
It wasn't much of a difference, and like it was just me just like working and having my having like a chopstick attached to my controller, like my controller analog, and just going straight
Yeah,
for an hour straight.
yeah, yeah. Huge.
Uh,
It's huge. Like
big
Hmm.
maps,
the
big.
so that because they were saying new ways to travel was one thing they're looking at. Just
Hmm.
wonder what they mean. I mean, it could be something like vehicle, ground vehicle. What else could it be? Like, what's the potential there for it to be? That's what I.
I don't know. So that they built it to not need ground vehicles. Like they built the game to essentially you never need to go that far. That's why the points of interest that matter generally will just be around where you land, or
Yeah,
they're just on the map and you land pretty close to them. So yeah, I don't know, because the game has it in there where if you turn if you mod it so that there's no loading screens, it is almost instant, especially early on. The loading is damn near close to instant. It can get longer as your save gets bigger, especially on console. So I am curious if they do shift to that like Star Wars Rebels approach or even Star Wars Jedi Survivor, where you're always in game
yeah,
and it's just loading behind you and they just run a canned animation,
yeah,
because that would make people feel more immersed. Then half of us would be like, no, I'd rather just have the near instant friggin' go to load screen, let me be there, I'm happy.
yeah,
But yeah, I do think maybe masking that more might be what they go for. I don't know. Maybe Shattered Space would have areas built for more vehicular style movement, but I'm very curious to find out what they mean.
yeah. It'll be interesting. It's
That's
it's
that's it's another thing that I like on your take. What do you like personally? What do you want to see in? Because you mentioned Shattered Space. What do you want to see in Shattered Space that like you like in personally your view on it? Like Like, what would you like?
I'm hoping it feels it's gonna most likely be close to House of Varun. I think it'll be focused on them more, the snake folk. I think we'll learn more about them. That'll end up being a lot of it.
Yeah, it's like story wise. Apparently, like I never played the Fallout 4 DLC, but like their DLC usually they're quite like highly loved. Like they usually get reviewed really
Yeah,
well.
it was the first. Far Harbor was one everyone always points to, and it's
Yeah.
like that's even better than the main game.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm hoping that because a lot of people snob the game just based off there's loading screens in between this and there's loading screens between that. It's like, man, you're missing out on an RPG set in space, and I'm a connoisseur of space games. So No Man's Sky, Star Citizen, I've played them all, and they all got their draw. They all draw you in different ways, but not one had a world where I really wanted to just be there and progress a story in and
Yeah, they're rarely story focused. They're almost always exploration focused, and that's fine.
it's fun.
But like, I don't come to Bethesda games just for that. I come for an RPG. So that ends up being the thing. Essentially, is like I wanted to just be an RPG, and an RPG set in space with some exploration, cool. But I want a Bethesda game that's just in this genre. Essentially, I don't want. I got pretty bored in No Man's Sky going from planet to planet because eventually you just want something more constructive to do. Is how I found it. So it was more for me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's definitely what it is. There's other news to talk about. I love Starfield. I could talk about it for like 8 hours a day. But there's been a lot of stuff happening this week. But I've had issues with. So one of them was the No Man's Sky, the new update not there yet on the Xbox. But another one was Stellar Blade. Stellar Blade, the demo. They're going to release a demo. Is that out for you guys?
I don't remember because I know it accidentally went up early.
Yeah, it went up early, didn't it?
Yeah, and then they were going to do it. I think it's coming out tomorrow, if memory serves me. Correct me. Let me look. Tomorrow, March 29th. So 1 day from now.
1 day from now, yeah. Or we're just starting the March 29th in Australia. So
your 30th.
our 30th, yeah. Oh, yeah. One of the features that they've added to that, which I thought is quite cool and I think should be adopted more often, and it just shows confidence in your game, is the save transfer going across, like your progress. What do you guys think of that?
I always like it. It didn't work in RoboCop because when I was reviewing RoboCop, I had it on Xbox and PC, and I had played the demo on PC. And then I tried to do it on the main build when I was playing it, and it bugged out and wouldn't let me progress, so I just had to restart anyways. But it's cool in concept.
Cool in concept, yeah, of course. It kind of gives me more of a reason to try out their game, because I'm not sure at the moment on Stellar Blade myself, but if I was to, have an opportunity to transfer my progress, because it's a bit annoying when the demos come out and you lose your progress, unless it's like a nice small portion. But if you're asking me to play like an hour of your game, let me transfer that progress over. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what the finals did, where you play it in the start, where you have that thing, and like you're able to purchase all of this stuff with the in-game points, but then when you get into the actual game, none of that
You
transfers.
lost it. Yeah. It was a bit disappointing. I feel like we're confused. Like, have we got this gun unlocked? Have we done that? I'm pretty sure I did that, but yeah, like it's sometimes it's playing a beta. I can understand, but if your game is like virtually done and you're releasing a demo, try to at least have some kind of progress and have it work. Like Jesse just said before, it didn't work. That's something that they could possibly look at with like your cloud saves. Xbox is really good with that. My cloud saves go across, when the games allow it really well. Another game that's got a free trial this weekend is Cyberpunk. I don't know if the progress goes across, but they mention you get 5 hours of gameplay, and I'm all for that as well.
In general, with free play, it's just flagging the game, so it should technically. There's no reason why it shouldn't carry over.
Yeah. Or you're installing the full, file.
Yeah, and they have their own cloud system built in. So with a GOG account, you can always get your main one save file for Cyberpunk.
I'm glad that they actually put that on the free to play, because that's another game that I was actually thinking at purchasing. Because I haven't played it and it's been out for a while, but I was still too skeptical on getting it. So now that the free play is out or coming out for the weekend, I should be able to test it out and see if I'm really interested in the game. If that's the case, I've got my end up buying it.
Yeah, I think I did. I did the DLC, the expansion review last year, and I think I gave it a 9.2.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty much, if this version of the game was the one they had put out at launch, it probably would have been like around a 90 on Metacritic. Like it is fantastic. It was still really fun at launch. I think I gave it an 8.8 at launch because I was on the one platform it performed really well, which was the One X.
It did.
It could be fine on PC depending on your specs, but yeah, like the One X, playing it on there, I always loved Cyberpunk, and now it is pretty much complete. I think they're working on a sequel for that, and they're working mostly on the next Witcher game. So Cyberpunk, if you're ever going to play it, now is the perfect time, and I highly recommend the bundle that has the expansion in it.
Yeah.
Phantom Liberty. Oh man, I can't. You know what? Because of that, I might end up buying it actually. Don't worry about the free play.
Yeah, no, like honestly, like it's a good thing to try out. The first 5 hours, it's introductory. The best part of that game is when you've got you've spec'd out your character how you want, and you're jumping around the map with all the powers and skills, and you've got a blade and you're slicing people in half. It's such a visceral game. Combat's great. Story's fantastic. The RPG elements, the picking sometimes is you're a little bit cornered in the story. I don't know. I didn't feel like I had too much control over it. I was just more picking.
They never got to the level of choice they showed early on. They never were able. They couldn't patch that back in. Because that would be completely reworking everything.
Yeah.
But it's fantastic. It's a great game.
Oh yeah, cinematic. Even just like the structure of like a conversation, like an NPC, you talking to an NPC, and the way that you can pull the camera around, you're not stuck. It's the framework for what other companies should do with their. If it's an RPG, you're in a conversation, allow the camera movement and stuff. It's so much more immersive. Definitely, I love it. Try it out. If anyone that's interested, that's on Xbox and PS5 this weekend, March 28th until the 1st of April. Another game that may end up on Xbox consoles after the PC release is done is Final Fantasy 16. What's this rumor about, gentlemen? Can someone give me more info on this?
Yeah, it's not a rumor so much. Yoshi P, the director of the game, was like, once we're done with PC, then we're going to start working, then we pretty much essentially just move on to potentially bringing it to other consoles. So at that point, it's like, yep. There's no reason. They're very much in a position at Square Enix of realizing, yes, Sega and Atlas and Bandai Namco and Capcom have all realized exclusivity deals don't make any sense. It's kind of like what Phil and the rest of the Xbox are learning, where it's like, we should just put everything everywhere. It doesn't really help us being completely,
exclusive.
There's sometimes it makes sense, but most of the time it doesn't. So we should just be everywhere.
But the best one, I'll just be honest with you. If I was a business man and I was going to release my game and I make it look exclusive for 1 year and I can double dip, it's still within that period of time that people would be interested in your game. It hasn't, and you've updated the game, you've got it in a solid state. boom, you release it again on another console. You're a winner. Everyone wins. The people who thought they had the game as an exclusive, they're done with the game. They're not going to usually care that it moves on to another console. It's a win-win for everyone.
You got
I
a lot
concur.
of people on Twitter that's different. Yeah, they like even with the game playing after what 4 years.
Yeah.
When it goes to another man. The storm on Twitter is absolutely different.
People, it's different. People are very used to things working one way, and when you go to change that system, it can take a long time for people to accept it.
Yeah, very long time.
Like it's like denial and, this isn't going to work. And then slowly it becomes an acceptance thing. I was trying to explain this to people. I mean, it's hard to have a conversation with people on Twitter in general, but I was just like reminding them, remember when Xbox said they were going to bring games to PC? How I've benefited out of that in comparison to what I've lost is tenfold. I have bought games on console like my Game Pass library, that they've got a new life on PC. Like there's some games I would prefer to play keyboard and mouse on, and now that I've got the PC and the setup, I'm going to go back to them now because they weren't good on controller, and I'm a winner. Like I don't understand where the issue was, but back then there were people freaking out, guys that said they won't ever use an Xbox console again because of it. Like it's your loss, dude. Like you don't want to move. These people, they've got data, Xbox and even PlayStation, they've got data we don't even know about. They look at trends. If we talk about SEOs and all that, they've got all that information in front of them.
Yeah, they will forever know more than we could ever even think exists. It is frustrating for people because they're just used to things working this way, and we don't get to see why companies make decisions. We don't know everything around them. I talk with Nick about it all the time. It's like they might be dumb sometimes, but I feel a lot of times people call companies stupid, but the actual people have no idea why a decision was made. Like we can't know. We don't have the info. And so in the end, I always end up defaulting back to either they just know better than me, or if they are wrong, whatever. I can't care that much. I can't care anymore.
Yeah.
And potentially with the whole those games going to different platforms. Now that the new rumor, I'm not too sure if this is 100% confirmed about either it's Epic or Valve. So there's things going around Twitter at the moment.
Yeah.
I'm not too sure if it's 100% accurate that I'm going to I'm going to guarantee that it's going to come out. But what do you have your takes on that? Either Valve or Epic, the storefronts, yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean it's literally Phil just saying it to Polygon. He's like, they own Windows, and Windows can do all this shit, and it's like, why don't we have that everywhere? What benefit is there for our customers, for us to not do this everywhere we can? We've got this on Windows. It works great. Everyone's just used to it and loves it. Why don't we try and do this? Because, again, they have the UI setup that would allow that to be a thing, where they could potentially find a way to just make PC versions of stuff work on their hardware, or they could have their UI just work on PC hardware in some way. Like, the console business has been pretty stagnant, no more than 200 million customers, and obviously capitalism is all about more. The only way they can really get more is to go find more customers. So that's this, which is a huge initiative for them, because people don't talk about Candy Crush and King all the time, but King was the biggest thing they got out of that. As big as in Call of Duty Mobile might start catching up, but mobile was what they really cared about. It's why they weren't like, oh no, we've got to give up some cloud stuff. It was like, okay, fine, we'll do it. We don't want to, but we care way more about this stuff, FTC and CMA. So thanks. Yeah, it ends up coming down to so much. What can we do to make more money without harming our business? And I don't see how any of us would ever be annoyed, especially with how many freaking free games Epic gives away, that most of us have probably claimed, like,
Yeah.
why wouldn't you want Epic on your Xbox? It's going to immediately give me 300 different games I can play because I've redeemed everything
Yeah.
they've put out for free.
Yeah.
And that's also me going back to the whole hardware stuff. If it potentially is a portable, I wonder how, if it's true, how is that going to run on the portable?
I mean, nice thing with PC is you can just change up what you're aiming at. So you can just change your settings, do what you need to do, and go from there, and probably be fine. But yeah, it's one of those things. Who knows until we see it, essentially.
100%. 100%.
I feel like in this day and age of news and news cycles, we're bound to find out between now and Summer Game Fest, like what type of, like, obviously these are just discussions because GDC is always a big thing every year. A lot of news articles come out of it. A lot of things are spoken about. They may not come to fruition. It was funny because that brings me to one of the next points that we're going to talk about. That one single publisher that spoke to Chris String out of GameIndustry.biz and how their fears about publishing on Xbox and how it got blown out of proportion on Twitter as well. But like, do you guys, like, when you hear this stuff, like me personally, I just laugh at it. Like, I'm sure they're going to want to bring their game to Xbox, and I'm sure it wasn't that big of a deal, but it's this constant like doom and gloom that I've come to a point that I'm like, it's only going to be doom and gloom if I hear Xbox saying they're done, and that's when I go, oh shit, there goes my library. I panic at that moment. There goes, like, I've spent all this money on the ecosystem. Until that day happens, like, I try to remain, neutral and have a bit of a nuanced approach. But what do you guys think about that and that particular article?
Yeah, the Drang thing was, so he said one large and one small.
Yeah,
because I know
that's
some people got mad when they said multiple, but I mean, it's pretty much, it's just a shitty time for smaller devs right now and small publishers where nobody can really seem to get the funding anymore. So I understand the frustration that a lot of people are feeling. And in the long run, it comes down to what can end up happening, like what is going to go down with all of this. And if any of us knew, I think we'd all be able to make a lot of money because companies really want to know right now, like, where is this shit going to end up? So in the long run, like, as a customer, I'm just at the point where until they start changing things, I don't really care.
Yeah.
It's not going to directly change my consumption of the media or use of the medium. But outrage sells and rumors sell, and that's why you're just going to continue to see that be the main thing that drives easy engagement.
Yeah.
Like, it will never stop. And I don't have a problem with Drang like most do. It's just, whatever. He's respected in the industry. From GameIndustry.biz is respected, all that. It's just talking to one person at one company, and these companies have hundreds, if not thousands, of employees. You can find... It's like having a lawyer, and it's like having 10 lawyers, and they all look at the same case, and they come back with 10 different interpretations of it. Like, everyone, how are they doing that day? How are they doing in their position? How's the company doing that day? Like, there are so many factors that can just change what you hear, but people can make really easy engagement off of that. So it just takes off, and you hear people talking about it nonstop like it really matters when it doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. And it takes a calm approach to even receiving the news. As an individual, like, my advice for anyone on Twitter is you read something, you let your curiosity, ask questions, always question the validity of it, but, be open to different, opinions, different outcomes to what you were thinking might be the norm as well. Like, it's an ever-changing environment. The world's not staying the same, and it's actually progressing at a speed, probably, an anxious-inducing speed now. And things are going to change sometimes for the better, and sometimes for the worse. But you got to let yourself kind of, sit and watch and not react so quickly and not be so negative about it. Maybe just be not optimist, but kind of just a realist in most situations.
Pragmatist. Like, it's just what is actually. People always go to extremes. Extremes are easy, and it feels good, especially if you get people who are with you on being extreme on stuff. And it's like, in the end, it's just video games.
Yeah.
Like, you can have a very normal conversation about it. You don't have to be a weirdo.
Oh God. And it's such a fun thing that we do, like with our spare time, for people to be blocking each other on Twitter, having fights on Twitter, like disagreements. Like anytime I've had a disagreement with someone, and it's not like calling them names or anything, I usually add them because I'm like, this person challenging my thought process. I like that because I don't want to be in an echo chamber anyway. So you disagree with me, have a different point to me. That's great. Good on ya, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it makes your life more interesting. It's the variety is the spice of life, mate. Try not to be so close-minded.
Yeah.
It's good, man. We're really appreciating your takes on this stuff because for us, we would have covered it and had our conversation from our little corner here and a little small corner and talking about it. We love talking about this stuff. Yeah. We're excited about it. Gaming is a happy fun place for us.
It's really nice to be in a position where I'm in my living room essentially, and I just got a computer I never thought would exist while I was growing up with how strong it is, and I've got this internet that's faster than we could ever have imagined, and we can just talk across the entire planet in milliseconds and shoot the shit about a hobby. Yeah. It's really nice.
It is really nice. It is. Well, one thing that's really nice, apparently some OG trilogy veterans are helping build the next Mass Effect. Are you a Mass Effect fan at all?
Oh, yeah. One of my favorite series of all time. I even quite like Mass Effect Andromeda.
Me too.
Story not the best. It's a little rote, but the gameplay in that game is fantastic.
I think it was a little bit of Starfield before Starfield. You go to planet to planet.
You guys continue the topic. I'm just going to be back.
No, you're right. You're right. The OG veterans. Obviously, when you hear that in any circumstance, like you said before, 10 lawyers, they all work at BioWare. 3 of them go this direction. It's always
it's one of those things you always hear about devs, and it's like, these devs worked on all these games, and they could have just been a janitor who worked in the back room. Like, you never know. Just someone working at a studio when a game was made doesn't mean a ton. It doesn't mean nothing, but yeah.
I think it is maybe they obviously if they have input to anything important. Last week we had the lead concept artist Jean-Luc from Arcane Studios, Arcane Lyon, and I mean he was saying because we said, you should speak to Dinka, we got excited. I guess look, Dinka's like a friend, so and they all have a kind of an equal input, if that makes sense. Obviously there's leaders and stuff, but that might help bring Mass Effect, the next Mass Effect, back to what the general but in this day and age, what brings Mass Effect forward? Do they do a fully open universe, or what? How would you perceive it?
I mean, it can be similar to the old ones, but you just need to have the time and the scope and the skill to make it interesting. It can play like Mass Effect Andromeda, but newer. But again, it just has to have the right scope, because with Andromeda, they wanted to do tons of procedural stuff, ran out of time, had to throw something together very quickly, and you could tell. So it will really come down to leadership and proper scope, because scope creep is the main thing that kills so many projects.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting, because Ken Levine was saying to the guys on the Friends Per Second podcast that Take-Two as they've given them a lot of grace, right, and time, but you're not always afforded that. I'm sure EA are going to be a little bit more foot on the neck, come on, Like we've got to get something. It might be a different outcome, but Take-Two, they can probably afford to allow, like especially Ken Levine. And they're forever testing these games. I just wonder, like for me personally, is it like a Star Citizen approach where it is a fully open world, but you have your mission structure that's a little bit more linear, but you have choice in that linearity or something. I don't know. It'll be quite interesting. When are they? What's it expected? It's not coming out. Obviously, it's been spoken about, but it's not coming out in the next 2-3 years.
No, it would. So the one they're working on now is Dragon Age Dreadwolf.
Yeah,
that's the studio's main focus, and then like they'll swap over to Mass Effect full time as the focus. So no idea. I don't think it'll be super long because they've already been on Mass Effect for a little while now. But yeah, in the end, it just ends up being one of those things where it's like, I don't know. Hopefully not too long because I'm really hopeful that it's very good.
Yeah, I'm quite confident. Like I've got to go back so I got the trilogy that they released recently. That's there on Game Pass.
Legendary Edition.
Yeah, I want to get back to the first one because I played the first one so long ago. I forgot what happened in the game, and part 2.
Yeah, it's a lot better now, thankfully, because they've done a lot of quality of life stuff in the Legendary Edition.
Is it gameplay wise, like how the game feels?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is.
Pretty much everything, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's such a nice little. That's a nice remake or remaster there because it's kind of in between a full remake, but with the quality of life stuff. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, it was pretty close to a remake with just how much they changed, especially look-wise. It's very different.
Sorry, boys, I had to run out for a little bit. My wife is a bit sick, so I had to just try
Family comes first, brother. Family. You see me have to run off to look after the kids and that on multiple episodes.
Hey, Jesse, in the next maybe 15-20 minutes, you're going to see his kid run inside.
He loves it. He loves to come. At the moment, he wants to watch me play games, which is a nice thing. He's not playing them yet. I'm sure that day is going to come soon, and I'm going to be dreading it because he's going to go, Dad, can we play Fortnite? And I'll be like, I'm just trying to play Dragon's Dogma, mate. Can't you wait? All right, I'll play with you. We can speak about what were your guys' thoughts on the new Marvel Rivals thing that they released?
It looks interesting. A lot of people are saying it looks very Overwatch. I think it actually looks more Paladins, if you ever played that one, which is very good.
Yeah, it looks really good. I was surprised. Didn't have much hope in it. It's going to be a 16-player roster, but when it releases in early access or closed alpha in May, it's only going to have 12. One of the things that caught my attention was destructible environments and you able to do like a combo duo attack. I don't know how that's going to work, but I've signed up for the beta test myself. Hopefully,
yeah, it looks really good. I'm quite looking forward to it.
6v6. That'll be quite. Yeah, that's a good kind of. It's not over the top.
If you're playing the Hulk, you should expect destructive environments.
Yeah, thank you. Don't you love it when you play a game and that was always one thing I expected more of in this generation was the tech of destructible environments and that interactivity that you get with it. It's something that's why you and I are drawn to the finals is how you can interact with that environment by destroying it and how bloody fun it is.
That's not impulsive thinking, so.
I promise I try not to punch holes in walls in real life, alright? Yeah.
But yeah, the game looks really good. When I first heard of it, 6v6 Marvel game, I wasn't really interested until they showed what it actually looked like, and honestly, it looks really good. I think
NetEase is the developers.
NetEase is the so. Yeah, they're developing it. I know they do a lot of mobile stuff. So people hear NetEase, they think mobile, but this is very much. This will be on console. It's just announced for PC because that's where the beta testing is going to be. But yeah, NetEase is a really, really large Chinese developer.
Yeah, which you don't get much out, and Marvel partnering with them is huge. That's a huge thing for the industry.
Yeah, they're one of the bigger. They're one of the bigger money makers, NetEase, because of just how much mobile stuff they have done.
And they could probably afford that fee, the Marvel fee. The one where Spider-Man, the multiplayer game, got canned because
they've already done a couple of Marvel games, so like they've had a working relationship with
a proven track
They're also
record.
doing like they're doing Dead by Daylight mobile.
Really?
Yeah, they made Diablo Immortal, which is actually very good. Yeah, so NetEase is a big one.
I didn't know they did Diablo Immortal. I thought I didn't know that was, and that was quite big. That's Diablo for your phone, man. That's crazy.
Yeah, and that still makes a ton of money. It makes like 30 million a month or something. Like,
Wow. Wow.
Potentially, most games are going to go mobile anyways. Like, depending on because the mobile side of gaming is massive. It's not small. It's
The
massive.
iPhone 15 with the native Death Stranding, like massive. How the hell is that being pulled off? I have no idea. All right. Well, that's been talking about other possible things coming out. Was it Spyro 4 was confirmed? I know you guys put up an article.
it was. So there's a YouTuber named Canadian Guy A, who has a rumor that Spyro 4 is the game that Jez Corden had written a rumor that they had signed to do with Xbox publishing. So that would be the Toys for Bob one.
Yeah.
So it's all It's a rumor of a signed deal and a rumor for what that signed deal is about. So double rumor.
Double rumor. Yeah.
It would be interesting to see what the actual outcome is. So if it's not Spyro, if it's something else, it'd be. They did mention that it's an existing, I think, a part of the rumor. So it would be interesting to see what it is actually when it does get finally announced.
Yeah. Yeah.
Potential Spyro, I can't wait to play the dragon again after so long.
Yeah. Will it fit in this day and age? A lot of people want those old, 3D platformers. I'm not too overly excited myself. Although Crash, I played the latest Crash 4. That was great. That's Toys for Bob. They know how to make a good game. So,
a lot of us OGs, a lot of us OG gamers will definitely be because Spyro, Crash, they're the ones that actually brought me into the whole thing of gaming because they were like really big. So a lot of us OGs might possibly jump into getting that if it does get announced. At the moment, it's a rumor, so it's not like 100%.
Yeah. Well, I guess we're getting close to the end of the podcast. The only other thing I had here was the new No Man's Sky update that's introduced shipbuilding, and that's been a fan requested feature for so long, mine included. But the update hasn't been live, so I haven't been able to get impressions and to test it out myself. But I know Jesse was saying, it got a bit boring for him.
I got over I had like 140, 150 hours over a long time with my brother and my wife playing co-op.
Yeah.
But I haven't touched it in years because there's just too much to do now that I do this for a living.
Yeah. Oh, it'll be interesting to see what that ship build, how in depth it is. I did see like screenshots of all the parts that you can pick, and look pretty in depth. So, I'd like to just. Usually, what I do, I play it in creative and see if I can interact with the new update. And if I can't, I'm like, sorry guys, I haven't got time for this. So, it's looking quite interesting. Hopefully, I can have a bit more info next week. But this has been a good time today, boys.
Yeah.
Really appreciate you coming on, Jesse. I saw you put
No, of
up
course.
your post, and you were like, you have a bit more free time, and for us, like, just having someone on that we can like quiz about not just the news, but just in general, podcasting and all that, and it's been an eye opener. I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna be listening to it again because I got to write some notes down, man. Honestly.
I'm not gonna
Yeah,
lie.
it's okay. No, I was just gonna say it's been nice with having so many people helping as we started and got bigger a lot faster than we thought we would. To just be able to try and pass the little bit of knowledge I've been able to gain on where I can.
No, thank you, man. Appreciate it.
And potentially, like, we might, like, because honestly, it's been a really good conversation. Like, a lot of stuff that I've been, like, questioning, we've been questioning, you've been answering, like, and it's been really good. So we would like to have you back on the show at some point.
Yeah, just let me know.
Yeah.
Things love to pop off, like even in this time where I'm like, I'm finally not busy. I now have like 3 pieces of hardware and 2 games I'm working on, and I've got another game and a preview thing, and then another preview thing, and then another preview thing. It's like, I forgot. Oh yeah, eventually I looked at my calendar and I was like, oh yeah, April gets unbelievably busy right off the bat. So this was the week.
Oh, that's good.
Before we end the thing, I wanted to ask Jesse, if because we mentioned about that game, Still Walks the Deep, Still Walks the Deep. Sorry.
Yeah.
Are you going to get like a review for that? Because that's something that
I'm pretty sure we're on the list. Still Wakes the Deep. Let me look it up. So they go through Press Engine in the US. I don't know if Press Engine's global. I think it is. So you go to pressengine.net and you apply there. Yeah. And they are using that website for their review code, whatchamacallit? Submission. So a lot of them are just send an email, you get put on the list. Some use Press Engine. There's also keymailer.co, which might be better for if you're not press, because Press Engine is for essentially for press.
Yeah.
But if you get a YouTube channel, they're normally fine with it. But so keymailer.co is another one you can hit up, and then the main way is to I think it's gamespress.com. Memory serves me correctly. It's one of the best ones. You sign up. You don't have to, I don't think you have to have a login, but if you do, you can then put in almost any name of any game, or developer or publisher. It'll pop up, and more often than not, it will have a type of contact. So
are there like requirements that you have to meet before you can get these?
Make people like you.
Yeah.
Just be very nice in your emails. If you go to gamespress.com and you look up the Chinese room, who are the developers, there's an email right there for one of them. They're represented by Honest PR. Globally, it seems like everywhere. There's 2 emails for Honest PR. They're probably going to push you towards Press Engine. But pretty much every time, it's just get good at Googling and finding out who's representing what. With bigger publishers, it gets very easy because it's almost always just the same 2 or 3 companies, depending on the country. Google's your friend.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
Me and Ink are almost very likable people, so hopefully that goes.
Yeah, almost.
Learn how to write a very succinct, positive, very thankful email if you ever request anything.
Yeah.
Because you're asking them for something, you got to be super nice and make sure that it's just a code. Normally, it's not that big a deal. Sometimes they are limited. Smaller publishers, smaller developers, depending on the thing, don't always just have a bunch. So there is going to be a list you might not make day of, or you might not make embargo, like before the embargo, but you might make day of and still get the thing for free to cover it. So it's always worth asking politely and being gracious if you don't make the cut, which we didn't used to all the time. Like we never made EA or Warner Brothers cuts. We eventually were big enough. We were like 10, 15,000 subs. They finally started paying attention when we would very politely email their PR, and we started making some lists, and you'll go from there. Show hard work and don't do rage bait reviews that definitely goes a long way, because it was very funny to see around the whole Starfield thing. The very typical, you know what they were going to give it, and the Starfield's at an 88, and then those late reviews start coming in from people who played this 100-hour RPG in a day or two, and give it a 4, and it's like, yeah, of course. That's why they didn't give you a code, because they know.
Yeah, we actually talked about it a couple of episodes ago, where if we ever get to the point where we actually review proper games, like how you guys do it, we'll probably wait after a couple of weeks or a couple of months of playing it just to give it honest review, because some people have been putting up reviews after one day of playing that, this game has this and this game has that, and it's just like, I can always look forward to what you guys put out, because you guys are always like genuine.
And the nature of video games these days is, are they ever truly finished? Are they ever true? Are you getting the full experience? I mean, what we always said, like a review in progress with a current score kind of system that could change in the future. But that's something we got to look at from our end. We're trying to be like a bit creative in how we approach it. But no, we like having this conversation today has been a huge eye opener. A huge eye opener.
My pleasure. Read the channel chat.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yes.
So I'm pretty good at finding things like that. That's been one of the main things. But yeah, it's been a ton of fun. Thank you for having me on. And yeah, just let me know in the future. It is very busy all the goddamn time, especially around the summer. Potentially going to LA for the first time for Games Fest because we were invited. Potentially going to, not potentially, I got my friggin' passport, so I'm going to Gamescom.
Oh, yeah, really? So you guys are going to be on... How's that going? That'll be a challenging kind of...
Yeah, so John can get there pretty easily. He's in England. It's like friggin' $100 or something to fly over there for half an hour.
Yeah.
The big one... So me going is going to be like, I don't know, $800-900, and then Nick going is going to be like $1,500. My money. So like, it's going to be a lot, but we're saving up. We might run a GoFundMe and anything just to do some in-person stuff, some show stuff. I'm going to hopefully have coverage around Games Fest. We got invited to, so we made the cut, should be going to Play Days where they do their big preview stuff. Don't know who's going to be there yet, but like almost everyone was there last year. And probably be at the actual Summer Game Fest opening night live, be at Gamescom and do all that stuff. It'll be, I have not traveled much, so it's definitely going to be eye-opening. Thankfully, one of our community members has offered me his house right outside of LA to crash at, because otherwise I would not be able to afford it, because we're already spending so much money to go to Gamescom. Renting a hotel, like multiple hotel rooms, because we're hoping to have, like, it'll be myself. I think Soul Blazer's on our team is paying for his way to go. Sick Mechanico, Special Nick, and hopefully more if they can get there, if we can afford it. But Summer Game Fest would just be me and hopefully one other member of our team, Proven, who lives in LA, so it'd be very easy for him to go because he's already there. It's just have to see if I can get 2 spots, because I know we got 1. But yeah, it's exciting. Outside of that, there's just going to be 18 quadrillion things coming out to try and keep up with my next. So I'm doing, right now, the next thing's on the site for me. Headset review, 4KX from Elgato review, controller review, but also working on House Flipper 2, which comes to consoles on the 10th. I'm playing the PC version. It's going to be the same on Xbox, I'm sure. House Flipper 2 rules. That comes out April 10th. I'm working on Ereban Shadow Legacy, which was originally coming to Game Pass at launch, but then they lost their publisher, so they lost that deal. But I'm still going to cover it on PC. And then Tales of Kenzera Zao will be my next big one. I'm really looking forward to that.
April's jam-packed.
There's a lot more too, yeah.
It's funny how the year... It's only been the last maybe 3 or 4 years where you're just rolling from game to game. It's not. It wasn't always
like that. It never slowed down. It never slowed down much last year. We would have a couple weeks here and there, and that's all I've had this year. Is now the last 1 week was kind of slow, and it picked right back up, and it's not slowing down. And it's the whole thing. Like, it's really hard to keep up with all of it, and that's why it kills me when people are like, "Oh, there's just nothing coming out on the platform." Like, no, there is always too much coming out. You're just used to only getting Game Pass, and if Game Pass drops don't have what you want, even those have been enormous lately, with more older third-party AAA and AA stuff. Like, it has not slowed down, and it is not going to. It seems so.
No, I mean, Rise of Ronin and Dragon's Dogma released on the same day. Like, come on, if you can't find a game to play at the moment, yeah, there's always something. There was the MLB game released as well within the same week, and South Park. There's 4. Surely you can pick one to play. Like surely.
No, there's a lot.
Yeah, which it's an exciting thing to think about, and you should never really be bored in this industry. You should never be twiddling your thumbs. You should have your hand on the controller, at all times, even when you're not playing games, because you got to be prepared for the next one.
Yeah,
it's that ridiculous.
My backlog is screaming, so
yeah, that's right. Do you have a backlog, Jesse? Before we go, do you have a backlog?
Nope.
Oh.
So I do a lot of streams all the time, and I use those streams, the Coffee with Cabeza ones. I think I've done like 500 now.
Wow.
I've used those to clear out any backlog thoughts I ever had. So I've played everything I want to play at this point. It's nice.
Yeah, that sounds like true freedom, bro. It sounds like a place I'll never achieve, but at least I can live vicariously through you.
It is a different thing though too, because I haven't bought a game in like 2 or 3 years, so yet I've played like 220 or something.
And it's all reviews, and Game Pass, obviously.
Yeah, it's almost all either reviews or streaming, getting codes for streaming all the time. So, yeah, it's a lot.
For anyone that's tuning in, obviously now or later, Coffee with Cabeza is your like where you just stream the games, and it's through Xbox Zero. Yeah, because I've watched.
Yeah, so it's on the youtube.com/Xbox Era. We've also been doing. We have a Hangouts show we do now, which is I get using Parsec. I have my gameplay and John Sicamechanico's gameplay above me in real time. So show off both of those. We played a little Helldivers, and we've done a couple of Redfalls. We're probably going to do more Redfall tomorrow because Redfall is very fun. And every Tuesday and Thursday we do Headlines, which is our news show. An hour we break down everything. And then, of course, the main thing every week is the Xbox Era podcast. It's going to be at 6 p.m. this weekend, Eastern Daylight Savings Time. It'll go back to 5 p.m. after John and Nick both have their time zone changes this weekend. So,
oh, we're next weekend. Australia's next weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, so John's this weekend, and then at that point, we just go back to the original for us because John is moving up. So if we started at 6, it would be like 11 for him for no reason again. So,
oh my goodness.
So Nick just gets to wake up extra early.
That's all right.
That
time he does some work.
The Australian timing is probably the worst. Like when I think in US, I believe at the moment it's what, like 3 o'clock. I think 4 o'clock.
It is 7:10 p.m. right now in the US.
Wow, in Australia.
Yeah, we had our daylight savings time 2.5 weeks ago.
Oh,
almost 3.
Yeah, we were early. Around 7, we always start our podcast on the Sunday at 7 a.m. just to meet the US audience.
Yeah,
at that time you guys are awake, and and the time zone in Australia and US is horrendous.
Yeah, because we're both previously Twitch affiliated streamers, and finding the time to stream a game, it was like fitting it into your work and your lifestyle. When do you want to play the game? When can you capture the best audiences? It was always very hard. So, we're reformed now, and we're just podcasting and talking about the games because we're having too much fun playing them, and we weren't really streaming them at the good time. We had quite a good time. Like, Twitch is all right. I don't mind it. there is a different kind of culture on there that.
It's very saturated too. It's very
saturated.
hard to. Yeah, you've either got to be in a hot tub
Yeah.
and be pretty hot, or you've got to be just unbelievably good at games, or an alt-right chud. Like there's these niches you have to find to get a big audience on there. YouTube ends up being surprisingly just way better for live streaming, and people always seem surprised at that, but it's because the highs on Twitch were bigger than the highs on YouTube, but there's just so much more mids on YouTube for actual engagement amounts. Like, it's just a way bigger audience, and it's a much better looking stream if you've got any decent type of bandwidth.
Yeah. I remember you guys were always chatting about that on the show, or even through your internet dramas yourself, like just the whole. It
drives me nuts. There's a fiber operator called Frontier that gives every neighborhood around us 5 gig up and down if you want to spend like $120. But you can get a gig for like $60 up and down.
Yeah.
And like, I would do that, and I would stream at 4K 60 and 68K bitrate, which is the maximum YouTube lets you do. But I can't. I'm just stuck with the friggin' dumb shit that the homeowners association here signed a deal for forever ago. So kills me.
The world's internet infrastructure is like the actual physical hardware and everything. It's got to have a new renaissance, because it is starting to get aged, and even in Australia we're behind the ball. We don't get anywhere near. We're lucky now to just get the gig down and not even the gig up kind of thing. So we're behind the ball big time. So unless they get that right, this internet future is not going to be much of a reality. Oh, well, that was a fun morning. We're just about to hit at the 2-hour mark. I think that's a nice sweet spot for us as well.
Cool.
Yeah, we once again we appreciate you coming on, man. It's
of course.
Honestly, I want to thank you, and you've taken the time out to speak to us, and obviously give us like advice, as well as hang out and just talk games, man.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Thank you for having me on.
No, and potentially because you like Redfall, potentially you might get 2 other players to jump in.
Hey, one day that'll be good. I got to get back to that.
Yeah, but no, it was awesome. It was awesome. If you guys, whoever's gonna watch afterwards, if you guys aren't already following the Xbox Era YouTube channel, please give them a follow, and also check out their Twitter, because they upload really, really great content.
Yeah.
News, everything. So just give them a follow and just show them the love.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. You two have a lovely rest of your evening and days. Thank you, everyone.
Well,
we'll catch you guys.
Because of things, because of your update, the Cyberpunk update, I'm actually going to go buy the game now.
Good luck, mate. Good luck.
All right.
See you.